G'day, welcome to another video on My Blue Heaven. It's Wednesday and we are sort of well and truly now into this trade period. I'm not necessarily going to talk about that. In fact, there's not a hell of a lot going on for our football club. We do know we want to essentially march a couple of players out the door. That's Paddy Dow and Zach Fisher, who have requested trades to North Melbourne and St Kilda respectively, and I suppose those negotiations are going on behind the scenes, and what we can get for both those lads will be interesting, although I'm not expecting a lot. And really, other than, I suppose, not so much rumours, but there is some interest in Elijah Hollands, the older brother of Ollie, who's on our list. Former first-round draft pick who's at the Gold Coast Suns. There hasn't been any, I suppose, talk or rumours or... for the first time in a long time, I reckon, we've been pretty bloody quiet other than the two guys are going out. So Nick Austin spoke yesterday on Trade Radio, and he pretty much sort of said that we will be investing in the draft, similar to what we did this year, or last year, sorry. We brought in Blake Acres. We got rid of Will Setterfield, and we brought in 4 youngsters. And, well, if you include Hudson O'Keefe, 5 youngsters to the football club, a couple of bigs. Lemmy. We saw Ollie Hollands have an outstanding year in his first year at the football club, and Cowan also played some games at the start of the year, and Jackson Binns wasn't far off. So if you look at that, there's some excitement with that next layer of players going into their second season. Be interesting to see how they develop. You probably wouldn't expect Lemmy and Hudson O'Keefe to explode next year, but the likes of Jackson Binns, given his outstanding year in the VFL where he won the best and fairest for the football club, you'd expect he will make his debut next year, and you'd like to see more football given to Lockie Cowan. And I reckon Ollie Hollands, based on what he showed this year, that he'll be a permanent fixture in our best 22-23 next year. So it's basically about the evolution of what we've got rather than what we're going to bring in at this stage. There's some slight, I think, deficiencies, or not so much deficiencies, but question marks on certain sections of the ground. I think, I've mentioned this in previous videos, that I think forward of centre, we probably need a little bit more spark in regards to our smalls. They're not bad defensively, but are they natural sort of goal kickers? I know Motlop has got that in him, will be coming into his 3rd season. Corey Durden will be coming into his 4th season. I mean, Matt Owies has been around a fair bit now. So I still think that plus a really classy hybrid forward is something that I would like for us to invest in. Whether we probably now do that through the draft, we're just going to have to wait and see. I would like us to maybe even consider a mature age recruit in Sean Manor from the Werribee Football Club, who was outstanding this year and kicked 6 goals and had 33 possessions in the losing VFL Grand Final for the Werribee Football Club. He was an absolutely outstanding. Was in the team of the year, 26-year-old, originally from Albury, spent some time on Richmond's VFL list and made his way to Werribee. And he's just such a classy small, and I'd love for us to invest in a mature age player such as Sean Manor. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to have a bit of a chat about one of our players who I think is just about to, and you probably guessed it in the thumbnail, is just about to erupt, just about to explode, and I'm expecting it. And it's the guy that I'm probably going to watch most closely next season. There was a train of thought with me at some stages with this fella is, will he be that sort of footballer who's very talented, who has terrific athletic traits, but at 192 centimetres is somewhat caught between a rock and a hard place. And what I mean by that, in the position that he's playing, which is in defence at the moment, that can he play on multiple type forwards? Is he good enough to play on smalls, or is he quick enough and dynamic enough to play on the small forwards? And is he strong enough to play on the bigger type players? But I think he is. I think with what I've seen, and there's still a lot of areas for improvement, and I'm talking about Brodie Kemp, and this is the bloke that I feel in the next couple of years, and I think we'll see some bigger strides next year with Brodie, that he will become one of the best players from that 2019 cohort, that draft, which he was taken at pick number 17. So the evolution of our group, and what I suppose the tendency that because we're going to go to the draft and we're not bringing much in, that we're going to really need players of that ilk of a Brodie Kemp. He's now been in the system. This will be his 5 years to really start to make that next step. And I think he has those qualities in him. And okay, when you're talking about a player who's only played 23 games and he's 22 years of age, and that's very, very young, in 4 seasons at our football club, it's not a big sample size to make big statements about. We know his history. We know Stephen Silvani, our list manager at the time, traded I think it was pick 9, ended up being pick 11. He traded it for picks 17 and 20, so it was a live trade. So basically we got 2 players for the price of 1 draft pick, as they say. And we ended up taking Kemp at 17 and Sam Philp at pick 20, who has been delisted, which is really disappointing because he was the one that came in and showed a lot of promise in his first year. He actually played senior football and it looked like he could be a player. And ironically, Kemp was the one that came in with the injuries, and now he's the one that's blossoming, I think. And Philp didn't come in with any injuries and then gradually got the injuries, and that curtailed his last couple of years at the football club. He's been delisted. We wanted Caleb Sarong, the word was we wanted Caleb Sarong, but he went to the Fremantle Dockers just before our pick. Then we went after Liam Henry with our next choice, but the Dockers matched that. He was an academy player. Then we bid it for Tom Green, and then the Giants matched that. That's when Sauce decided to split the picks. Now, I don't want to go in with what we could have had, what we should have had, because frankly, I'm trying to say here that I think Brodie Kemp is going to be an outstanding player for our football club. But just for the sake of it, we got the players that went after Green at pick 11, pick 10, was it? Pick 10, that we could have had before we nabbed Kemp at 17 were Sam Flanders at the Gold Coast Suns, who went at 11. Now, he's really improved. He's really coming along. It was a little bit of a slower start for him. I think Keziah Pickett at 12 for Melbourne is outstanding. And when you think about it, it would have been great to have that really dynamic small forward in our colours. But, yeah, Day from Hawthorn's just won a best and fairest at a very young age. Bergman from Port's a really emerging defender, quite like him. Cody Waitman's a very exciting and dynamic sort of small forward for the Western Bulldogs at pick 15. And Cooper Stevens, he's probably been the most disappointing player so far in that draft, in that little patch there, because he was at the Cats and he's now at the Hawks and has hardly played any football at all. He went at 16. And in between Kemp and Philp, Georgiotis 18, and I've spoken about this before, Sam DeConning at 19. And we could have had either of those two, but now I'm starting to see the signs of a very, very good player with plenty of upside in Brodie Kemp. So we know he didn't play any football when he arrived at the club in his first season. Did an ACL in his draft year, playing footy for Geelong Grammar. But he's from Bendigo, but he went to boarding school at Geelong Grammar. Was outstanding in the national under-18 championships, playing for Vic Country in a multiple of positions, whether it was in the midfield, down back, or up forward. So got some good flexibility about him. Played a couple of games in the back end of his second season, but continued to have problems with his body. Played 4 games last year and it was, I suppose, a few little question marks starting to, I suppose, come to fruition in regards to Brodie Kemp, last year, and where he was going to play and where he'd be best fitted, and trying to settle him down into a spot. And then we know this year he strung together 17 games. After starting the year in the VFL, and then coming into the senior team in round 7 against the West Coast Eagles, played a couple of games, got dropped. It wasn't like he was playing ordinary football, but he went back to the VFL, showed great resilience, fought back, cemented a spot for 15 games straight. But we know he wasn't probably at his best, the form that he showed prior to the finals. His form did probably go off a little bit in those 2 finals against Sydney and Melbourne. He wasn't awful, and it didn't come as a big surprise when he was omitted for the prelim final against Brisbane. But I think part of that was based on matchups. I mean, we went with Wiedering, McGovern and Marchbanks as our talls, and I don't think we wanted to go in with an extra tall, which essentially Brodie Kemp is. And we decided to bring in Boyd, who was outstanding in that final, to partner up with Sard, Newman and Chincotta to take on the Lions' dangerous smalls, which I don't mind. And I think it was horses for courses. I don't feel, you look at that and feel like he's on the outer. But essentially, you would think that he's fighting for a spot with the likes of Mitch McGovern and Caleb Marchbank. That's where it's probably at the moment. And given, really, Marchbank's only on a 1-year contract, and McGovern, there's always been question marks on his durability. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for Brodie Kemp, to really, really establish himself in this football team next season. His season was good. He was above average, really good stats, really, above average in disposals, kicks, handballs, tackles, and intercept marks, which I think is a really, really big strength of his. He is very, very strong in the air. I'll get to that shortly. But just average in spoils. The part of his game, if he is to flourish as a defender, which we think he's probably going to be, but he is adaptable. I think that ability with his one-on-one work of players who are similar height to him, who are taller, because he's going to have to play taller at times as a defender, so that one-on-one work and his spoiling would be at the top of his list in regards to things he really needs to improve on. But 23 games, given those strengths and given his ability to find the ball, and I know the way defences are set up now, it's probably less about one-on-ones and more about zone defence. But he is a ball getter, he is a ball hunter, and he's a confidence-type player, and he's prepared to back himself in the air. I actually quite like that. Moving forward, can we find the right matchups for him, the ones that will suit him better? And I think the club are trying to still work around that. Which at times he struggled with, particularly in the finals. And I think that was based on the fact that sometimes we really wanted to free Jacob Wiedering up. And the balance for Brodie Kemp, I think, between defence and offence is something that he'll continue to work with. They've signed him to a 2-year contract, which they did in July, which is a show of faith. But at the same time, it's not a 3-year contract. I think 2 years is fair for him. It's not 1 year, 2 years. I still think they're slightly unsure and somewhat cautious, considering he hasn't established consistency with his body just yet, and trying to fit him in exactly what is his spot at this football club. And a lot of that based on the injuries and the infancy of his career. I spoke about his ACL injury and a number of other little injuries and niggles he's had since he's been at Princess Park. But I think last year was the first time he had a full pre-season. He's going to get another one under his belt, and he's got a terrific physique that's going to put on more size and more power. He's a bloody good player. He's a really good player, and I love his strengths. I love his speed for his size at 192 centimetres. He's got great agility, and that's really pleasing given that he had that knee injury. I like his courage. I do, not just his ability to throw himself in the air and throw himself into the contest. Sometimes he's a little bit slow to move, a little bit on the back foot in regards to his defending, but his ability to really see the ball in the air and keep his eyes on the pill is outstanding and takes a lot of courage. And I think courage as well for me is not just about, the fact that you are going to get crunched or you may hurt yourself. It's more, for me, courage and confidence to back yourself in the air. And I see that with him. And once he finds that balance of being able to, okay, this time I'm not going to try and fucking mark it, which I like, but this is where I really need to kill the contest. And I'm sure they'll be working on that with him. I think you're going to see a really outstanding defender and potentially a really good defender, because we often think defenders are all just about fucking grit and being fucking dour and locking down. But the way defence is played now, and I think we need to get better at transition, and I think he's got that in his game. I think he's a really good decision maker. I think kicking was something that was a question mark on him coming into the AFL system, particularly kicking at speed. But we're seeing a player who's really confident with the ball in his hand, whether that's by hand or by foot. I don't think he's a penetrating kick, but he kicks the ball with a little bit of precision and some class, and he generally makes really good decisions. And the big one for me is obviously his attitude is great, and the for him to be flexible. And if he can fix up those flaws in his game that I've mentioned before, there's no reason why he can't be a long-term player at our football club, and one that I think is ready to just about explode. And I mean really explode. I think you're going to see a really exciting player at our football club. And I don't know, we need to settle him down, but have we completely ditched the idea of Brodie Kemp as a forward? Because at 192 centimetres, we're crying out for that mobile hybrid forward. Has he got the smarts? He did play there in the under-18s. Has he got the smarts? I know he's played there in the VFL. But if we're going to be a front half team, maybe it could be worth having a look at over the preseason. I'm not quite sure. The reason why I thought about Brodie Kemp is because I rewatched the grand final, and not that I really should rewatch the grand final considering that Collingwood won it, but the thing that really struck me, because I was actually a little bit under the weather when I was watching the grand final. Even that early in the game, I was a little bit I'd had a few, given it was a very hot day. And I often, when I've had a few drinks watching the game live, I like to go back and watch it again. And when young Murphy went down with a head injury, I just thought it would really disrupt Collingwood's defence, And I know Jeremy Howe's a lot older than Brodie Kemp, but those intercept defenders who can switch their game and then lock down and play a really selfless role but still be damaging themselves. And that's what Jeremy Howe was. I was thinking, who is going to be those players at our football club over the coming years that have got that in their game to be an intercept defender, be attacking, but also then play a selfless role for the football club. And I think this guy's got it in, let's just say it, I think he's got it in bucket loads. I'm not saying he's going to be Jeremy Howe at this stage because Howe's a bloody good footballer. But for me, Brodie Kemp is the one to watch in 2024. I'd love to know your thoughts on Brodie Kemp. I'd also like to know the player that you're looking forward to watching next year, the one that could make some significant steps in their AFL career. Speak soon.